Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ignorant Intellectual. It's been a while since I made a video, so I thought I'd make one tonight. Um, I've been in the mood really to make videos. Uh, my son just had some surgery, so I've been taking care of him, and I just haven't had real time to do any videos. But I figured I might as well get one done here because I've watched enough stuff that this video should be kind of interesting. All right, so we got some CDs, we got some Blu-rays, we got some TV shows, we got some books, and let's get to it. All right, so um, let's do the CDs first. All right, first up is "On Every Street" by the Dire Straits. Now, all the ones that I'm going to show you for the CDs, I've listened to in my car for the last few weeks, and so they're kind of a blur. But this one is pretty good. This one has "Calling Elvis" on it, which is one of my favorite um, Dire Straits songs, and a couple others. It isn't as good as their one, with "Money for Nothing" and uh, those songs. I'll put the is it up here or up here, wherever I usually put it. I'll put it up there. The Dire Straits album, is it Brothers in Arms? Is that what it was called? Anyways, but this one is pretty good. So if you haven't listened to the Dire Straits, you should. Um, and probably the one I showed you is the best one to listen to. But if you listen to that one and you really liked it, then this one would probably be up your alley as well, right? So "On Every Street" by the Dire Straits. All right, so here's the Cars. All right, which one is this? This one is 1987's "Door to Door." All right, listen to this. I really like the Cars. The Cars were popular in the 80s. Um, Rick Ocasek had a unique voice. They're kind of like pop rock, pop punk kind of thing, and but they had a string of hits through the 80s. So they were always on the radio, but they weren't on the radio enough to really kill them, if you know what I mean. There's so many bands that were on the radio because you have to imagine there's no Spotify at that time, right? So back in the 80s, where you listened to music was either on the radio, all right? You would have like a, well, we used to call them ghetto blasters, but I guess they're what, or you'd have a radio in your house or in your car or whatever, right? Or you would listen to usually cassette tapes later on, CDs, right? Um, so there was no Spotify or iTunes or anything like that. So um, you would listen to albums, and you would listen to the whole album usually before you'd switch it off to another album. You really wouldn't, unless you made a mixtape with a bunch of different singles that you liked, and you recorded them maybe off the radio or off another, a record or CD or tape. Usually you would listen to a whole album, right? And back during this time, the Cars had a string of hits that were on the radio. I wonder if any of them are in here. Ba, 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 ba. Leave or Stay, You Are the Girl, Double Trouble, Fine Line. Anyways, they're all typical Cars songs if you listen to the Cars. And they weren't on the radio enough to really kill their vibe like so many other bands when you're listening to the radio. Like the ones that come to mind the most are Def Leppard. I mean, you couldn't get away from Def Leppard. They had a string of like Paranoia, like there was like three albums that they had during the 80s uh, that just covered Def Leppard. Every time you turned on the radio, within 5 songs, there'd be a Def Leppard song on, right? So you just couldn't get away from them, and it really killed the band for me. They're considered one of the great, post-punk bands, but the amount of times they played their songs on the radio was just I can't even listen to them anymore. All right, so but the Cars had a string of hits, but they didn't play them on the radio so much that it would kill it. All right, and here's Bruce Springsteen's first. This is his first album, if I remember correctly, from 1973. Greetings from Asbury Park. This is the one, Blinded by the Light, that ELO kind of took over. You know, Springsteen was a great songwriter. Just two that pop into mind is that one, Blinded by the Light. Was it ELO that did the cover of it? Or was it? Anyways, I'll put it up down here. Um, and most people know the cover more than they do the original that was on this album. Not surprisingly, because they picked it up and it was quite an enjoyable. hit, right? And Aretha Franklin did the same thing with Pink Cadillac, which is another song. It's not on this album, but another song by Bruce Springsteen. But Aretha Franklin, once she takes a song, nobody else really has that song anymore. She did that with Respect, which was an Otis Redding song, remember correctly. So a lot of her hits were obviously written by other people, but her voice just takes a song and it makes it hers, right? So, but Blinded by the Light was, I think it was the ELO that did, anyways. So this one has Blinded by the Light and the Angel and some other stuff, but this is pre, late '70s, early '80s, where he just blew up with, like Born in the USA and Born to Run and those albums, right? So, all right, but that's his first. If you're looking for Bruce Springsteen's first album, this is it. All right, what's up after that? Oh, Lynyrd Skynyrd's um, Street Survivors. All right, so this is the last album that Lynyrd Skynyrd did with the original lineup because two of the band members and a bunch of other people ended up dying in a plane crash after they recorded and put this out in like 1977, 77, 78, somewhere. Let's see. Yeah, 1977. All right. So this is the one that has What's Your Name on it and That Smell. That Smell is my favorite Leonard Skinner song. If you haven't heard that one, when I was a kid, I always thought it was about a fart, right? But maybe that's what attracted me to it. But actually, it's about it's a a warning. One of the band members was getting seriously into drugs, and this song was about him, like a warning to him that he's got to quit, right? So and I never dreamed honky tonk nighttime man ain't no good life. So um but they ended up Van Zant and actually their guitarist, the guitarist that played on this album, joined the band. I can't remember his name. What was his name? His name was produced by Tom Dowd, produced by Jimmy John, Tim Smith, backup singers, the honky, that smell. Yeah, I'm wasting your time right now. But anyways, I can't remember his name. But he did the guitar on this album, which was extremely good. They jumped up their talent a bit with him, and then he gets into a plane with Van Zandt and others, and half of them end up dying in a plane crash, right? So that was the end of Leonard. I mean, it wasn't the end of Leonard Skinner. They continued, but they didn't have their original lineup. All right. Um, and last but not least, is Paul Simon's songs from the Cape Man. All right. So this is an extremely weird if you haven't listened to it. So I hadn't listened to this album, right? I listened to what's his greatest one? The one anyways, I'll put it up here because bad memory, I'm old, ignorant intellectual, and there's another one where he got together with the that African band that played that really popular African music, Black Zambo. I can't remember the name of it back in the 80s and 90s. It was that album. I listened to that album, and I listened to most of his Simon and Garfunkel stuff. But I never listened to this album. Then I put this album up, and this is like really strange. Paul Simon. You get to hear him swear, which you never hear Paul Simon swear, but he's like, like blowing off some swear words in this one. And it's like I don't know. It's like his ode to Puerto Rico or something, right? Basically, it's kind of like a storyline of a Puerto Rican man, and yeah, he mouths off some pretty serious swear words on this album. Never heard Paul Simon swear. It's quite a jump when you listen to him. Comes a swear word. You go, what? That's Paul Simon. Anyways, it wasn't a bad album. I didn't like it a lot. There was like there was a Puerto Rican sounds influence on this album, so he kind of expanded his palette when it came. He liked to collaborate later on after you know uh, Graceland, Graceland, right? So, anyways, okay. So those are the CDs, all right. And let's do a TV show. So I've been putting most of my movie watching on hold because my daughter bought this for me, which is the complete series of Ray Donovan. Now I watched the first season of Ray Donovan. I think it was on Netflix, but don't quote me on that. But I think it was on Netflix, but they didn't. Showtime put it out, but um, I don't think Netflix picked up any more of the seasons. And when I look on Netflix now, none of them are there. It may have been Amazon Prime that had it as well. So, but anyways, I watched the first season. I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to watch the other ones, but I couldn't watch them because it didn't have whatever I needed to watch it. So, I just kind of moved on, right? And then, birthday or Christmas or whatever comes up, and I click and go, hey, what I'd really like to watch is Ray Donovan. And so my daughter bought me that, the complete, all 7 seasons, 8 seasons, so it's 7 or 8, all 82 episodes, including the movie. All right. So, but basically, that series is about a fixer in Hollywood. All right, Ray Donovan, and that's played by, I always screw up his name because it's difficult to say, but anyways, I'll put it down here. All right, and but the guy that I really like the most because he's such a uh, was John Voight, who plays Ray Donovan's father, right? Anyway, so basically, what this is about is Ray Donovan's a fixer. He works for Elliot Gould, who plays a Hollywood um, honcho, uh, and Ray Donovan fixes stuff for his clients, right? And um, like movie stars and stuff, they accidentally do something stupid, and then Ray Donovan goes in and cleans it up, right? So that's what he does, and the whole series is about him fixing everything, right? And he gets pushed around some, but he's a pretty tough guy in this series. But his father, who ended up going to jail for 20 years for a murder he didn't commit, because um, his son blamed him for that murder, and his son set him up to go to jail. Gets out of jail and comes to L.A. because they're all from Boston. They're Irish. They're Irish from Boston, right? From Southie, right? Um, so they all go to L.A. Like Ray Donovan, his wife, and his 2 kids leave Boston and go to L.A. to work for Elliot Gould to fix things in L.A. And they thought it would be a good thing to get out of the neighborhood in Boston because it was getting kind of hot, right? Um, so Ray Donovan's father goes to prison. He gets out 20 years later, and that's when this series starts. Is when John Voight, who plays his father, gets out of jail and shows up in L.A. Right now. Ray Donovan has 2 brothers. One's an ex-boxer, used to box, was pretty good at a boxer, and then he had who was his older brother, and he had a younger brother who was basically a screw up because he was molested by a priest when he was a kid. All right, so but it gets more deep than that as the story goes along. Anyways, you see how effed up Ray Donovan and everybody around him is because of Ray Donovan, and his father is a career criminal and everything. So anyway, so it's a really good show. The only disappointment I had through the show was after season 5, Ray Donovan's wife left the show, so they ended up giving her breast cancer, and she ends up dying of breast cancer in season 5. So season 6 and season 7 weren't as good because didn't have his wife in it, right? And his wife is extremely good actor in this show. Anyway, so and she's what held a lot of the family together. So anyway, but overall, at least the first 5 seasons, extremely good. I would highly recommend Ray Donovan if you have not seen this. All right, so now I can watch it anytime I want. All right, which I did, but it took me, a month or more to watch it. So, and then I ended up going out. Now I have the complete Star Trek films, all 10 of them. 6 with the original cast, and then 4 with the Next Generation. I have all those 10. They came out with a box set of DVDs with all of them in it. The double thick DVD cases. I had it, so I picked that up. But then I ended up finding uh, the first 6 on Blu-ray in a package, and so I picked that up. And now I found the 4 in another package like this. All right, so I picked that up. So I'm going to get rid of the box set. So these are really nice, nice editions. They're all in the thin. So it's all the 4 Next Generation films plus evolutions. All right. Was it Evolutions? Nemesis, Evolutions, Insurrection, First Contract, and Generations. So I think Evolutions would be like the extra Blu-ray of extras and stuff. All right, but it comes in a nice box set. It reminds me of the Star Wars box sets that they came out at one time as well. Anyway, so and the Alien ones as well. Anyway, so it comes has this plastic thing to put over it to protect it, but I'm going to put it in a plastic bag to protect it because what happens with this over time is going to happen is it's going to yellow. It's going to turn yellow, right? So if you put it in a plastic bag, the plastic bag will turn yellow, not the actual plastic thing that's protecting the case, right? All right. So now I have them all on Blu-ray instead of DVD. So I'm going to sell the DVDs, and we'll go on from there. All right. And it'll save me some space because the Blu-ray, the DVDs are like this wide, and the two Blu-ray cases are like this wide, right? So I think they actually came out recently with all of them in one package. If I find that, I'll probably get that and sell these ones. You know, it's just upgrading. It seems like with the amount of movies that I have, I'm doing more upgrading than I am buying films that I don't already have, right? Like, for example, this. All right. So I have this in a DVD package, two package, Death Race 1 and 2. Not all that great. Um, but I don't know why. There's a reason why I have this in my because it's Paul W.S. Anderson. I have a bunch of his films, so that's the reason why I picked this one up. He did the first one. The second one is just pure. I didn't like it at all. Pure crap. It doesn't even star um, Jason Statham. It stars another guy, right? Um, so the main reason why I have this is for the first movie. The first movie wasn't bad. It wasn't great. Basically about Jason Statham ends up in prison, and the prison hosts these death races that you can be exonerated and set free if you win. Like I can't remember. I think it's seven of them or whatever. So what happens is if a person's good enough to win these death races, you get into these souped up vehicles, you know, with missile launchers and bullets and everything else, and you know they blow the crap out of each other. And you know, there's always people that die in every show, and then they broadcast that uh, to millions who watch and pay for it, right? So on pay-per-view. So, but if you end up getting, I think, 7 wins without dying, then you're set free. So whenever anybody gets close to 6 wins or whatever, they just make sure they kill him off so he never gets free. Anyways, so Jason Statham kind of uh, escapes or whatever, right? So, anyways, next up is Byzantium. This is a vampire movie, and this vampire movie is pretty damn good. I really enjoyed this film. All right, this is directed by Neil Jordan, and I collect Neil Jordan films mostly because of again, I'll put it up here or up, I think it's up here. All right, I usually put them up here, right? Maybe it'll be up here. Anyways, for the Crying Game, I don't know if you've ever seen that film. I think it's taken on a different meaning now that transgender rights are like in everybody's face, right? Like all the pronouns and so on and so forth. So it's taken on a bit of a different view, especially people that are like backlashing against trans rights because of it went from trans rights of adults into children, and then once people started to get really their back up when it came to transitioning as a child, right? So anyways, the language has moved forward. It used to be a sex change operation. Now you don't say a sex change operation. Now you say transitioning. Anyway, um, so the Neil Jordan film probably takes on a different meaning for all those people that are, like disagree with, uh, let's say, the agenda of radical transgender people, right? Because there's a transgender person in this. Well, there's a person playing a transgender person in this film, right? Uh, he is actually, if you watch if you watch the movie Stargate, not the TV show, but the movie with starring Kurt Russell, Ra or whoever the god was, that kid who was the god in that. actually plays the transgender person in um, the Crying Game, right? So it's an extremely good movie. And when I watched it when I was in my, I think it was in my late 20s, early 30s, it opened up my eyes to that one and Boys Don't Cry. Those two transgender films, um, opened up your eyes to another group of the population. It seems like there's so many groups of the population that seem to be in bad sorts, and then we end up sorting that out, and then it's the next group, then we sort that out, and then the next group we sort it out, right? But movies tend to show um, this up on screen, right? So like those two films, The Crying Game, and because okay, how to put that? Okay, so The Crying Game basically is about a guy who ends up falling in love with a transgender woman who hasn't had surgery, so she's still got the physical parts of a man, all right, but she dresses like a woman and she acts like a typical woman, and the guy falls in love with her, and then he finds out that she's actually quote unquote a man, all right, and now he's got to decide whether the love that he has for her is real or is not real, and what he needs to do about it. Da 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 da. All right, so that's what that is about. Boys Don't Cry is about a girl who, um, a transgender boy who's actually, like biologically a girl, and she pretends that she's a boy, and then she starts dating a girl, and then her family finds out that she is actually not a boy but a girl, and they end up beating the shit out of her and killing her. All right, so um, or him, I guess, killing him, right? Um, so that one is a pretty tough watch as well, right? But you get the idea of you can see how extremely dangerous it could be if you have the feelings of a transgender person, right? I mean, I don't know if biology will ever show that transgenderism, like for example, homosexuality was never really proven as a, biologically as not a choice. Let's put it that way. Like, is there any, how for the longest time, I'm rambling a bit, but anyways, how for the longest time the cigarette companies got away with causing cancer, lung cancer, in so many people because they couldn't link, that there is no direct link between lung cancer and smoking, and then they did. They finally linked it. Scientists finally figured it out and linked it. And once that link hit, bam, every government in the Western world sued all the tobacco companies for billions of dollars because of healthcare losses, right? Okay. But until that link was shown, um, nobody did anything, right? All right. So with homosexuality, that link was never really shown. But the preponderance of the evidence and the advocacy of homosexual people um, won basically society over because they had a convincing argument. Even though there's no, determinate biological gene or something that causes homosexuality that we know of, and so on and so forth, it's just the preponderance of the evidence. I mean, a gay man would not be a gay man unless he's a gay man, if you know what I mean. Um, why would you put yourself through that misery, especially before homosexuality was accepted and you could get strung up on a tree, right? Or you could get shot, right? But society changed because the arguments were very good arguments. All right, so now we have transgender people who were saying that just like homosexual people, this is a biological determinate thing, right? But there is no connection, right? So now they're trying to show with a preponderance of the evidence, that, and it's not working presently yet. So, but you can see how dangerous it is for especially let's say a biological man um, being a transgender woman, and then not telling. her partner that she was either a biological man before operations happened, or she still is a biological man with the parts of a man. Um, you could see how some men, would get violent because of that. All right. So, and it makes men, especially in that situation, question their sexuality because they thought the person was a woman, but biologically she's a man. That would make them homosexual, of which they are not, and some people still have an affront to homosexuality. So you understand the situation that puts people in if a transgender woman does not reveal, and the reason why they don't reveal is because you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. You understand? They could get seriously injured or killed if they reveal it, and if they don't reveal it and it's found out, they could get seriously hurt or killed as well, right? So what that happening, that needs to change. It needs to change. Whether you think transgenderism is a biological thing that happens like homosexuality, or you think it's a mental illness, like let's say anorexia, okay, um, that doesn't matter when it comes to life and death, and that doesn't matter when it comes to starving if you can't find a job, right? Because of prejudice against um, transgender people, right? So whether you think actually transgenderism is a thing or isn't a thing, and you think it's just some person with a mental illness in a dress, right? It doesn't negate the fact that that person is still a human being, right? You understand? And still has the right to live without threat or death, right? And should be able to become employed so that they can support themselves and not starve, right? Do you understand? Those basic things. And it's those people that are arguing that point of view, not arguing whether transgenderism is a mental illness or not. They're arguing, yeah, well, even if, let's just say that you think it's a mental illness, and okay, let's say I agree with you, even though I don't. Does it mean that this person with a mental illness deserves to get beaten up or, killed because of it, because of this mental illness? Do you understand? So, anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. The point being is those two films kind of open your eyes to the issue of transgenderism. All right. So Boys Don't Cry and The Crying Game. And that Crying Game uh, film really affected me, and it made me a fan of Neil Jordan, and I collected all the rest of his films, and this is one of them. This one is very good as well. It's about a mother-daughter vampire um, collective. How you become a vampire in this film is not you're bit by a vampire. Um, But you go to this island and you go into this cave area, and then you're attacked by some sort of primordial vampire, and that changes you into a vampire. So there's only this one vampire on this island that can change you. And then once you become a vampire, you can't change anyway. When you feed on somebody, if you leave them enough blood, they survive and they just continue on human beings. Or if you suck them dry, they end up dead, right? So, anyway, so in this film, there's a mother and a daughter. The mother is a real SLUT. That's how she survives. She'll open up a brothel and attract other women and make money that way in order to live. But her daughter is not that way. Her daughter has nothing to do with that. What she does actually is she has this innate gift that she knows when old people are ready to pass on, and what she does is she helps them. She's kind of a euthanizer person, right? And what she'll do is she'll suck their blood dry, and she only does it if they choose to let her do it, right? So, um, but they get a feeling that she's a vampire, and then she says, if you're ready to go, and then they give her permission, and then she sucks the blood and they die, right? So anyway, she gets involved with a young man, and then people start finding out about them, right? And then it goes on from there. So it's a really interesting film, and The one who plays the daughter, I think it's Sorose Ronan, is extremely good. I saw her in another film, but I can't remember which film it was. But she plays really good. And her mother, her, she is a beauty. I mean, she is quite attractive, a quite attractive woman. Now they 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 don't play mother and daughter in the film to the outside world. They play an older sister and younger sister because their ages. Once you get attacked by that host vampire in that cave, you don't age anymore. You stay that age. And she was in her 20s, and then her daughter ends up being like 16. So it's like they're more like sisters, older sister, younger sister. So that's how they go off when they're talking to other people, right? Anyway, so extremely good movie if you haven't seen this. And I would pick up some Neil Jordan stuff if you are really a film buff and see what you think of his stuff, because a lot of his stuff is extremely good. This one is very good, and The Crying Game is really good as well. So, and his other stuff as well. And then I found this. All right, and I already put it in a plastic case, and that is a really nice um, steelbook of Almost Famous. All right, and it still has its J card, so that's kind of cool. And I picked this up for pretty cheap. I think it was like $10 maybe. I think I picked it up for like $10 or less, right? Um, Anyways, this is quite a fun film. This is basically about the youngest writer reporter for Rolling Stone magazine in their history. I think he was like 16 years old, and he ended up going on a tour bus with a rock band, which is she is one of the groupies. All right. Um, anyways, and he kind of reports back to, but basically it's his coming of age experience, right? So the 16-year-old boy that's working for Rolling Stone and writing for Rolling Stone, submitting um, articles while he's on the road with the band. It's quite an enjoyable film if you have not seen this. And I think this may be Cameron Crowe's best film. All right, so I collect Cameron Crowe films. I think, well, this was one of the reasons why I started collecting Cameron Crowe films, was because of this, and I found it in a really nice Blu-ray, steelbook Blu-ray. So that's always nice. All right, next up for that is A Revolutionary Road, Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. Basically, I stopped this film halfway through, so I watched it, and it's basically about um, a few years earlier, they both starred in the film Titanic, and it was a huge hit. And the romance on screen was really powerful. If you watch that film, it was like the first half is a romance between DiCaprio and Winslet, and it was really beautiful, and it's awesome, right? A rich girl and a poor guy, and he kind of sweeps her off her feet and all that. It's great. And then the second half of that film is just a disaster movie, right? What I mean? It's like Poseidon Adventure or something. You know what I mean? Um, uh, so um, So then they said, "Hey, let's make another movie with the two of them in it." And because of Titanic, the romantics will flock to the film to see that magic again, right? And it's kind of there, but they fight a lot in this film, and it's basically about he's like an office worker sales kind of guy for this company, but he has like all these dreams, and he always wanted to go to Paris and pursue what kind of man he wants to be, to figure out what kind of man he wants to be. And he ends up marrying Kate Winslet, and they end up having a couple of kids. And so then they decide to throw it all up because they saved enough money, and then they're going to go to Paris, and then all hell hits the fan. That it's not a pleasant film. And once they decided to go to Paris, it was like more than halfway through the film or whatever. I was like, okay, that's enough of this film. I don't want to watch it anymore, so I stopped. So it's not a great film. But who directed this film? Sam Mendes directed this film. Sam Mendes is a good director. I collect his stuff, so I'll probably keep the film, put it in that section where Sam Mendes is, because I'm a completist. All right, and then I found this. I've been looking for this film for years, and I really, really want to find this and the second film, the sequel, even though the sequel's crap. But this film is extremely good. All right, if you haven't, the animation in this film, and it's like very Canadian oriented. There's a lot of Canadian actors that do voices in this film, and they're like little shorts. It's basically about this green ball that is like pure evil that travels around the universe and just causes death and mayhem wherever it goes, right? But it's this. So there are little stories, throughout it. But there's one main large story, and it's about her and the bird slash dinosaur that she flies on. She's kind of like this Red Sonja kind of warrior kind of thing, like Conan the Barbarian kind of warrior, right? Anyways, and the animation is extremely good. Now this is like stories from, I don't know if they took them directly from Heavy Metal magazine, but there was a magazine back in the 70s and 80s called Heavy Metal. Back then everybody was reading magazines a lot more than they do now because every magazine's kind of online now, right? You kind of read stuff online rather than on paper, right? So, um, but magazines were the big craze, and you had Cracked and Mad magazine were very very popular. Comic books were very popular. Well, kind of heavy metal was kind of like a mix of that, like kind of a mix of a magazine slash comic book kind of thing, but it's an adult kind of comic book because it deals with a lot of, I don't know if they'd be able to produce that magazine today. You know what I mean? With because so much of it was misogynist and rape culture and other stuff that's in that magazine during that time, right? Um, so guys did not behave very well in that magazine. It's all about, you know, I don't know what you would call it. It'd be like a sexploitation film, but instead of being in a film, a woman in prison film, but instead of it being a film, it's a magazine, right? I remember one story because I read one of the heavy metal magazines. I can't remember where I got it, but I was a young guy and I read it through, and most of it didn't really interest. But there was one, all right, there was one story, and it was basically there was this girl that's like naked, all right, and she's in a field or close to a field, and from the waist up she's naked. You can't see the waist down because she's in this really tall grass, right? And there was like two or three you know miscreants or whatever that see her and say, yeah, let's sexually assault her. So they go chasing after her. So she starts running through the grass and they start chasing her. And she goes into this field of running grass. In this field of running grass, this grass is like razor blades. And then they end up in this field and just, they start losing, get cut here, cut there, lose an arm, lose a finger, lose this, and they end up all dying because they get stuck in the middle of this razor field, right? And then she comes out the other end of the field, and her bottom half is like a robot. It's basically metal legs and metal hips or whatever, right? And so basically she could run through it because she was made of metal from the waist down, right? So I always remembered that story. I don't know why, but um, that story always stuck in my head from that one heavy metal magazine that I read, right? And this is basically like a animated version of heavy metal magazine, right? It's extremely good, especially the Valkyrie one, this one with her, right? So um, all right. So next up, I found this steelbook DVD of Rush Beyond the Lighted Stage, and it's basically it took long enough for somebody to actually make a documentary on this band. It's one of the greatest bands of all time, Canadian band. Um, it goes through their history. You get to see some live, cuts and performances. They talk about their music. They talk about all that. It's really, really fun and really interesting film, and I'm glad I found it. Number one, and number two, yeah, Rush needs to have more, respect. I guess you know what I mean. Like the number of people that they picked up. I mean, like Jack Black is on this and other guys, and they're all praising Rush and how great a band they are, right? And a lot of them are Americans as well. So it's like anyway. And then I found this for a really cheap price as well, and that's a 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray of The Big Lebowski, the best Coen film, one of the greatest films of the '90s. Um, I mean, Jeff Bridges as the dude is just unforgettable. But what's his name from Roseanne? What's the guy's name from? I keep forgetting his name. John Goodman from Roseanne. Man, that guy. that guy really stole the show in that film, right? I mean, no, the dude is the dude, right? But um, his John Goodman's character is extremely funny in a crazy sort of way, right? So, anyways, it's an extremely good film and very funny. All right, I think only maybe Fargo would compete with it as the best Coen film, right? But The Big Lebowski, extremely good if you have not seen it, and you don't really need it on 4K. I mean, it's kind of a waste on 4K. Um, well, I guess it's not a waste, but it's like watching TV at home on let's say a 25-inch, 24-inch monitor or something, and then you go to the theater and you watch it, right? That big of a difference. It's like Blu-ray to 4K. Um, the 4Ks that are probably the best, the most interesting would be, the CGI 4Ks, the animation, or the sci-fi films, that kind of thing, where the clearer the thing is and you watch it, it's just gorgeous or whatever. But like a drama or a comedy, does it really need a 4K? I don't know. Anyways, but I did find it for under $10, so I picked it up. All right, what's up? I'm gonna keep that one to last. I also found this one, High Anxiety, a film that I have not seen by uh, Mel Brooks. All right, so Mel Brooks is just the king of comedy of the mid to late '70s and through the '80s. Um, he's like Edgar Wright, basically. You know how Edgar Wright made Shaun of the Dead, which was kind of like a spoof on the zombie film, and then afterwards he made that buddy cop film. And after that he made that like end of the world kind of film. You know what I mean? So he's kind of like spoofing off of different genres of films. Well, um, Mel Brooks is the one that did it really good back in the '70s and '80s. He did Spaceballs, which is a spoof off Star Wars or sci-fi films. He did Blazing Saddles, which is a spoof off, like westerns. He did History of the World Part One, um, which is a spoof off of historical, like Ben-Hur or something like that. These epic historical films made fun of. And this one, High Anxiety, is a spoof off of like the thriller, like the Alfred Hitchcock type of thriller, right? So, and there's a lot of odes to Hitchcock in this film, which are kind of funny. But if you haven't seen the Hitchcock films, they probably will, pass over your head, right? So, um, but yeah, it was funny. It's basically about um, Mel Brooks is basically the star, and he's Harvey Korman's in it. Harvey Korman and another Cloris Leachman plays the nurse. Harvey Korman plays the doctor, like a psychiatrist doctor, and Mel Brooks is in the ward because of quote unquote high anxiety, right? So, I just watched this film and I would have to think about it just to try to remember it. That's how old I'm getting. All right. All right. Next up is Ingrid Bergman's Stromboli, and this one, again, I watched it within the last month or so, and I enjoyed it, but now I can't remember why I enjoyed it. So I won't review it. Um, it's a Rossellini film. So Rossellini is one of the great Italian directors. So, and then, okay, I did. Okay, all right. So next up is the Complete Monterey Pop Festival. Now, there's two basically. Monterey Pop Festival and Woodstock are two of the big concerts back in the '60s and '70s that you know um, are seminal, I guess you could say, because they had such a lineup in them that it's like a lot of the people that played in the Monterey Pop Festival ended up going on to careers of very large magnitude. Like um, probably the two most iconic concerts, because it went over 3 or 4 days, and bands would go up and play like 3 or 4 songs, right? They wouldn't be playing for an hour and a half. They'd be playing for 20 or 30 minutes or something, and then another band would come up. So you get like, I don't know, like 7, 8, 10 bands in a given day or whatever. um, but it was basically spearheaded by can't remember his name. His first name is John, but he was a member of the Mamas and the Papas, right? He was the guy that wore that furry hat, right? Anyways, he and another guy basically put the whole show together, right? So you had the Mamas and the Papas there, but there's two seminal performances that started careers like hugely, and that was Jimi Hendrix's concert, all right? Where he burns he gets down on his knees and he puts down his guitar and he puts lighter fluid all over it and he sets it on fire and he starts worshiping it, kind of thing. That happened at the Monterey Pop Festival, right? So, and the Otis Redding show also blew everybody away, and it made Otis Redding like a huge hit, right? So, um, but you had a bunch. You had Janis Joplin played at it. There were so many great bands at this show. It's just incredible. So they made a um, they made a film about it, and that's the first disc on this thing. And then the second disc is the Otis Redding and the Jimi Hendrix concerts, plus a whole bunch of bonus stuff, right, in this. And it's a two disc set, and it's called the Complete Monterey Pop Festival. All right, um, so this is really good. If you can find this at a reasonable price, I would say pick it up and um, watch the documentary. They only show the Jimi Hendrix and the Otis Redding shows. They don't show the whole pop festival during the documentary. They just show excerpts from a lot of the people that played at it. Right? I don't know if they really have the whole concert, all 3 or 4 days of it um, on disc or not. I don't think they do. So the closest thing you can get is this, and you do get the Jimi Hendrix and the Otis Redding concerts also, but you do get to see, all the different performers perform at least a song or part of a song. But like I said, it's a documentary more than it is a concert, right? So, um, but it goes through the whole process of how it got started and how it was made and who did what and everything else. It's quite an interesting thing. It was a huge concert and huge um, festival, anyways, like Woodstock or whatever, right? So, um, but this has nothing to do with the Monterey Pop Festival. It has everything to do with the Criterion Collection. All right. So the actual documentary is number 168. All right. And then the two concerts, which is on the second um, Blu-ray case, is number 169. All right. So it's cool. They're in order. But both of them together in this box set is number 167. So you want to, when you look up, uh, when you look up the Criterion Collection and you see that they've put out, the numbering goes up to, let's say, 1,200 or something. You think that there's 1,200 movies in the collection, and there isn't, right? Sometimes there's more, and sometimes there's less. Sometimes there's two movies on one number. Sometimes you end up getting an empty number, right? So if they ever put out these two discs not in this box set, and you pick up these two discs, you'll never end up getting number 167 in the collection unless you buy it twice, right? So, and then when you do put it on your shelf, are you going to put it facing this way with the 167, and then next beside this will be 170, right? Because 168 and 169 are these two discs, or do you pull these two discs out, put the empty box set, which takes up space, and then you put the two discs beside it, so you have the numbering on the front of your, on the front of your shelf or whatever, right? And what will happen is this case will end up it's stronger here and stronger here, but less strong here. And what happens with cases like that over time, they end up getting like an hourglass shape. They kind of go in like that and they bend, right? So then what you need is to get two thicker Blu-ray cases, because remember, the Blu-ray case, these Blu-ray cases that the Criterion Collection and other boutique cinema labels put out are thicker than the regular Blu-rays, right? You have to find two of them and put them in just to keep the box set. If you're going to take the two films out and put it beside this, right? You're going to need two other ones to put in inside to keep this box square or whatever, right? So um, I just put it like this. I'll put it there, and then these will be hidden. But what can you do, right? Unless I want to buy another one, right? And then take that other one, buy this box set and have it like this, and buy another box set and flip it around and have it like that. So you have the two beside each other, and then you have all the numbering. But then you have doubles in your collection. And I don't know if Criterion Collection is doing that on purpose to make people do that, right? So that they have the numbering all perfectly on the front of their shelving, right? Um, are they putting a number on the box to make you buy it twice, right? I don't know. Makes you think, though. All right. So, and I bitched about this in previous videos. If you've watched any of my previous videos, I just don't agree with that kind of thing. The box should be unnumbered. Shouldn't be a number on the box. And they do have some that are like that. They have no number on it, right? All right, so let's do some of these movies here. All right, so we got Linklater's Boyhood. I watched this years ago. I had it on a DVD, so I found it on a Blu-ray. So I picked it up, but I'm not going to review the film because I just can't remember it. And this one I picked up because it's a Rob Reiner film, and it's and so it goes, but I have not watched it. So, um, and then I found this film by James Franco. All right, and it's called Lorna the Exorcist. All right, so this is one of those. Is it a giallo film? No, it's not a giallo film, is it? Um, Anyways, I found it. I haven't watched it, and then I watched this film. All right, which is called The Ruling Class. And it stars Donald Sutherland. Right. I watched about 15 minutes of it. The first scenes where the guy goes in the room and then he hangs himself, and then I got bored of this film, so I stopped watching it. So I don't know what this film is about or why the Criterion Collection added it to it. I'll have to revisit it maybe before I die, but I didn't like it the first time I watched it. So, and Sunshine, which is directed by Danny Boyle, who I collect. I started watching this film and I watched it halfway through, and then I stopped watching this film as well. So I didn't like it much. Um, so those are those films, and just one more film. I found this today actually, and that's a steelbook, a thick steelbook of Up. Right. So that's the front, and that's the back, and it's thick. It's like very thick. It's not your regular steelbook size. Inside it has the digital copy, so you can get it, uh, uh, get it online, watch it online or whatever. All right, and then you got the what do you got? The two Blu-rays. One is the feature film, and the other one is the bonus features. All right, so they made it thick for some reason. Um, there's a bit of a scratch in the middle, or I don't know if that's a blemish or what, but I like steelbook, so I found this. I found this for $10, so I picked it up, and I'll replace my Blu-ray with the steelbook Blu-ray. And if you have not seen Up, how would I rate the different Pixar movies? Up would be up there. Funny. Up, and Wall-E would be up there. But Toy Story, Monsters Inc. would be up there as well, right? So um, those would probably be the best four from Pixar would be Monsters Inc., the first Toy Story, Up, and the fourth one that I mentioned. Don't remember it now. Man, don't ever get old. All right, so those are all the films, and last we just got a couple of books, and then we'll be done. All right. So I just found this one today as well for $4, and this is a really nice edition of The Jungle Book by Rudyard Kipling, with Mowgli, all his animal friends, and Shere Khan, the tiger that's coming to eat him, right? Anyways, it's an extremely beautiful book. And now this was published in 1978, all right? And it's the young people's edition published by Macmillan. And this book has been published and republished. I think the first, where did it say? The first publish of this was in May of 1894. This was published first by Macmillan. And they've been publishing ever since. But this is extremely a beautiful, nice copy for being 50 years old, right? And the main reason is, well, number one is it's such a great book, right? If you haven't read it, read it, all right? Second is, look how gorgeous this is. A 50-year-old book, and look at it. It looks pretty much new, all right? It looks like a new. And why does it look new? Is because the person that owned this book before he got rid of it, and he probably didn't get rid of it, probably maybe his wife or his husband, her husband, got rid of it because he died or whatever, okay? Um, it's like brand new. And the reason why is because they protected it, all right? Look, the the dust jacket is new, and the dust jacket is like 50 years old. And why? Because they put mylar on it. See that? From Brodart. I mentioned Brodart before, right? Right. So it's where I get my mylar from to put on dust jackets so that they stay new, right? This one has the plastic dust jacket, but then it has a paper um, to hold it all together, right? So, but it makes your book just stay just gorgeous, right? So, um, so yeah, so I may keep this and add it to my collection, but I usually only keep um, leather-bound editions of books that I've read. So I may just resell this. But I found it for $4. What is populism? All right, this one explains basically populism. You hear it a lot lately. Are you a populist? Are you? Are you a populist? Are you on the right? Are you on the left? What are you? A populist? All right. So, and most people don't know what it is. So basically, um, Jan Willem Mueller, the German guy, I'm assuming Mueller is a German name, right? So, um, explains it, explains it to you in about 100 pages, is my guess. 133 pages, he explains populism. So I picked that up. I may read it. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but populism is a popular subject. So here we have a nice soft cover, trade paperback size, of Alice Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, two of the greatest children's stories of all time, and illustrated as well. So this should be an easy resell. And then I have two that I'm going to add to my collection. All right, and they're both in the Everyman library, the newest version, the ones that came out like in the early '90s originally. And that is The Prince. If you read political philosophy, you will come across The Prince, Machiavelli's treatise to a duke to get into his favor, and it's pretty brutal what he recommends if this duke wants to stay in power. Basically, especially if you're what's called a usurper, which is a person that doesn't uh, get a crown by heredity, father to son to son to whatever, but goes to war and just takes the territory and declares himself king or whatever, right? Um, Machiavelli suggests that you should basically kill everybody that's in the family of the former king so that they don't grow up or come at you later to get the throne back because they're all dead, right? So it's pretty brutal stuff that some of Machiavelli's advice, right? So, but that's where you get that term. That's extremely Machiavellian, dark, what I mean. So that came from this, and he has a bunch of discourses or essays or whatever, also that are extremely interesting to read. But this is what made him famous, basically, as the Prince. All right, and the Everyman Library put it in their collection, and it is number 79. It's number 79 in the collection. All right, so I have this one to add to my collection, and I have Italo Svevo's Zeno's A Conscious to add to it, and this one is numbered what number is this? Number 249. So there's around 400 altogether in this collection. Um, and I probably maybe have 150 of them around, maybe 200. Um, and if you notice how shiny it is, it's because I put it in a Mylar jacket. All right. Now the Mylar that I buy doesn't have that paper around it. It just has plastic, so it ends. If you can see, it ends here and ends here. But basically, if you put Mylar around your dust jackets, the dust jackets will stay new and it'll protect them. They won't rip over time, right? Um, and those are two that I will add to my collection of. I should show you my Everyman collection. Maybe I'll do a video on that at some point. And that's everything. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, leave me a thumbs up. Think about subscribing. That would be cool. And you have a great day, and I'll speak to you in my next video. Bye for now.